morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whichever part of the world you are joining us from, Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade welcomes you all for this prestigious event on World MSME Day 2023. I am Ananya Banerjee Chatterjee, the R&D and Communication Officer and your host for the evening. Every year on June 27th, Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise Day is celebrated to honor their role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Small and medium-sized enterprises account for up to 90% of the businesses, 60 to 70% of employment, and they account for their half of global GDP according to the UN. The Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade is an organization based in India, South Africa, United States, and UK, with board and council members representing across the world. This year, we are celebrating the day with global perspective from various departments, ministries, Chamber of Commerce, and international organizations. We believe that global perspective have a significant impact on paving the way to the future. Coordinated global responses is key to MSME post-pandemic economic recovery. World MSME Day is an important opportunity to look at this topical issue in a very practical and policy-oriented way in the global context of MSME. Here we ask the rest of the world to work together to help MSME get through the current crisis and build up the ability to handle future shocks. We encourage GCPIT members to create an open, fair, non-discriminatory and predictable global trade and business environment that helps and encourage MSMEs to participate in international trade and businesses. So today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Herbert Mtowo. Mr. Herbert is a dynamic leader and entrepreneur making significant contributions to the African business landscapes. As the chairman and founder of Africa Entrepreneurial Network, he has been instrumental in driving and encouraging entrepreneurship across more than 20 African countries. In addition, he also served as the CEO of Total Business and Projects South Africa. His expertise extends to his role as a former psychology lecturer at multiple universities and his experience as a consultant and technical advisor for renowned organizations such as German JIT. And today he will be sharing his valuable knowledge on the topic international trade and investment opportunities of his country. Over to you, Dr. Herbert.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, world. On this day that I believe is very important to us as a global council for the promotion of international trade, as we celebrate this day. I mean, looking at the African context and the world, specifically with the international trade and investment opportunities that Africa is giving to the world. I am glad to be at this platform today, sharing some of the details of the current trend in terms of trade, in terms of economy building, in terms of investment, and in terms of how medium and small enterprise businesses are managing and how they are growing. I will take you through my presentation and be able to share some of the experiences currently in my travel in Africa and seeing how either the government or the donors or the investors are complementing what is on the ground as regards the medium and small enterprise businesses. I'm actually grateful for this impact and the effort by global Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade around this topic, which I believe runs through and drives through in terms of boosting the economy. If I may share this off from my slides, just briefly, Africa is at a stage where I strongly believe she has the resources, she has the human manpower, she has the academic resources, but at the same time, Africa has been lagging behind in terms of the economy building and the boosting of the economy. You find 3/4 of the graduates in Africa, after they finish varsity, they either relocate to Europe. Mainly, we're looking at countries like Canada, United Kingdom, especially North America, where they do small jobs, which have got nothing to do with the years that they spent in varsity. You'll find either some of them with master's degrees, some with first degrees, even just doing cleaning jobs. That is a reflection of how Africa has potential, but has not been able to tap the potential and to let these supposed to be entrepreneurs be contributing viably to the growth and development of Africa. I'll take you through my presentation. On this day, the 27th of August, as we celebrate World MSME Day globally, which I strongly believe is a very strong initiative by GCPIT as regards boosting economies, employment creation, sustainability, and development. The opinion, if collectively efforts are put around this and leaders, political leaders and corporate leaders are able to grasp, to see the importance of not just celebrating MSME Day every year, but also getting involved in supporting, getting involved in nurturing, getting involved in growing all these, then we could be having an economy. Specifically, I'm talking as an African perspective, that we would have a whole lot of impact that would go on around this. I submit that as Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, we are on this World Micro, Small and Medium sized enterprise. I mean, we call it MSMEs Day, and we firmly believe and acknowledge that Africa and the world cannot achieve the tabled sustainable development without encouraging and supporting establishments of successful, vibrant, and resilient MSMEs. It must be emphasized that MSMEs are today's sparkle and tomorrow's glowing and blossoming industry in the world. Our major responsibilities as GCPIT around this is to make sure we implement relevant major national, continental developmental strategies and promote foreign trade, bilateral investment, and sustainable economic and technological cooperation, carry forward cooperation with overseas trade and promotion counterparts, receive overseas high-end trade and economic delegations. And to be able to organize this, we are also encouraging to organize global trade and economy delegation to visit foreign countries, manage overseas trade exhibitions, participate in national or country or continental affairs, World Expo, on behalf of the GCPIT, organize for companies to attend trade and economic. I am also, just would like to say, I will be speaking also at the GCPIT in Lusaka, Zambia, where I know I'm made to understand the ministers have confirmed they are attending the event. So these are some of the platforms on the 27th, some of the platforms that we believe are important. To us as Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, this MSEs World Day is of huge and utmost importance, and it seeks to bring global awareness on MSMEs in Africa, not just confined to Africa. I'm looking at the continent, but globally. And these are some of the things that are laid down about Africa. Looking at it at the moment, we envision building and creating the Africa that we deserve. And that to me requires participation and active involvement by MSMEs in each and every country in Africa. I tend to think maybe for a long time they have been neglected or they have not been given the attention that they deserve, despite their contribution in employment creation. GDP boosting in almost every country is actually coming mainly from these MSMEs who are many a times not really supported. That's why, like I said, as GCPIT, creating such a day for a global day to be on a calendar to say we believe in these MSMEs. So MSMEs, and be able to see that their contribution to an economy and improvement of communities and different villages is actually quite immense. Documenting about Africa's successful MSMEs has been long overdue. There is a statement that the Jews say, if it is not written or if it is not recorded, it never happened. And I'm very grateful for what, as GCPIT, we are doing, literally documenting success stories in different countries, success stories around these MSMEs in terms of their impact on the economy. There is a story in Africa about the success of them, but if they are not documented, if they are not collectively biographed together, nobody would know what they are doing. Now is the time for Africa to step up in investment and economic policies for many, many generations to come. African leaders and economists must have the agency in constructing effective and sustaining trade and economic narratives to make sure that Africa's economy is becoming sustainable. And supporting MSMEs is if she is to be an economic global powerhouse, which Africa is possible to have, but they have to look at how much they give attention and support and training and either guidance or accessing resources to MSMEs in Africa. And as Africa, we must be forthcoming in developing applicable and feasible economic trade development and investment ideas, policies that will grow and see Africa become an economic giant. There are a lot of opportunities in Africa. When we look at Africa's economic landscape, it says a whole lot about Africa. We do have petroleum, natural gas, we have crude oil, we have gold, we have uranium, we have cotton, we have iron ore, we have coffee. In Kenya, we have coffee in Uganda, we have coffee in Ethiopia, we have coffee grains, we have tea, we have diamonds in Botswana, in Angola, in Namibia, in South Africa. These are some of the resources that Africa is actually rich with. I've always said at different platforms that I've spoken, one of the richest countries in the world, not just in Africa in terms of resources, is DRC Congo. But if you look at the problems that are taking place and the level of poverty in Congo is actually alarming and shocking. You find Congo has currently at the moment the highest rate of asylum seekers, yet it is in Africa in terms of resources, probably the richest in terms of resources. So, but when we as GCPIT focus on such importance in terms of encouraging these platforms for MSME to be able to access resources. You'll find there will be a whole lot of entrepreneurs in Congo that can literally sustain the economy. The GDP of the country can boost up, but mainly because there's not been peace and stability in most of these countries, it becomes a pipe dream. I should say boldly that Africa's economic landscape is very much appealing and enticing to investors, since investment climate in Africa is very ripe for stimulating broad-based sustainable development and offers attractive returns to the both investors that are keen to take up the many investments opportunities that Africa has. It is a continent awash with the rich resources, mining, virgin land, and most climate-friendly economic in the world for agricultural practices. It is all booming in Africa. If you look at the agriculture aspect, much of Africa's land is actually good without even doing any any fertilization. It's actually rich soil, but many a times it has not been utilized to produce, and number one, to produce, to sustain the lives of the people. Number two, to export and bring in foreign cash, as the US dollar and the euro. It has not been fully utilized because I'm of the opinion the support of MSME farmers in different countries has not been fully complemented. In my travel in Africa at the moment, I see all different countries. You find young farmers who are, you go to Zambia, they're farming soya beans. You go to Tanzania, they are farming dried beans. There's a whole lot of these farmers, but in terms of being put together, trained, taught how to manage these businesses has not been really complemented by the political leaders. That's why, in my opinion and belief, is that MSME from GCPIT is actually a very important step towards growing the GDPs of many African countries and contributing Africa to stop being the begging, to come up with begging bowels at different platforms, but being a donor giver. I mean, I can give an example of saying some years back when the Second World War ended, Germany received aid, Japan received aid for about a period of 20 years. But Africa has been receiving aid, I think now for almost 50 years. And they've still not been able to support. Germany now, they have received the aid, they have now support platforms, Japan has support platforms. Why is that so? Yet Germany and Japan, in terms of natural resources, in terms of either human resources, they are not as rich or blessed or fully functional as in Africa. It is because of this. In most of these countries, in Japan, you find MSMEs are supported, and many a times in Africa, they are not supported to be able to step up and realize how they can build. America has been what it is today, a success story. It is the entertainment industry. It is the sporting industry. It is the theater industry that is that boosts the economy of the United States of America. And Africa has all those in terms of cultural music, traditional dance, exporting cultural dress code, which I believe are very much appealing to other foreign nationals. Africa's economy landscape continued, possible landscape initiatives. At the moment, Africa stands out for national, country, government, large multinational lateral donors. That's where Africa is at the moment. She's just receiving donor aid. But my question is, from an economic point of view, a leadership point of view, and from an entrepreneur point of view, for how long should Africa receive donor aid? Africa should come to a point whereby instead of receiving donor aid, Africa should be able to do partnership, should be able to do collaboration. That's why, in my opinion, GCPIT, for our bringing this day on the 27th of every of June to say, look, we want to stop and acknowledge MSMEs in Africa and be able to say, this is a global village. You can be able to receive partnerships and collaboration, be tracked and seen what you're doing, and be able to grow and have the acumen to run sustainable business. Number two, Africa has plenty of non-governmental organizations that are in civil society, that are community driven. Some non-governmental organizations in my travels are literally equipping and empowering women on accessing resources. And I've always said Africa is not fully developed if Africa has not empowered the woman and the girl child. For a long time, the woman and the girl child in Africa have been looked at as just waiting to get married or to have children, yet they are equally with the capabilities of producing and running successful MSMEs. And most of the successful MSMEs in Africa at the moment are being run by women, are being run by widows, are being run by children who are just vibrant and zealous about. So when we celebrate this day as a continent, as the world, I believe a whole lot should also be put in looking at the plight of the woman and the girl child. Because most of the times in Africa, I grew up in a society where where there was a decision to see who goes to school, the boy child or the girl child, if the finances are not really adequate to take both of them. They'll just say, let the girl stay at home, she'll get married, let the boy go to school because he will be a leader. But at the moment, GCPIT is saying, look, we want to acknowledge that any girl, any woman, any boy, any man can be a successful business person, can start an entrepreneurship. Africa offers sub-regional initiatives and platforms. You look at SACU, you look at COSATU, you look at COMESA. These are trading blocks that Africa is giving. You go to ECOWAS, these are trading blocks. They are not just military protection or military defense of their countries, they are also platform for trade. You look at SADC, you look at the AU, these platforms are created that there could be enough access of resources. And I think at the moment, the AU is talking about doing away with the movements from country to country and people just accessing these movements without a passport. But if you look at it, it's actually driving into supporting MSMEs in the world and in Africa, which I believe is long overdue in Africa because it is necessary that they are able to share experiences and stories. Africa also offers traditional, local, or community-led platforms which would empower many locals. What I've just been saying, you find economic development, I think, by far in the world has always been unfair to the woman, has been unfair, especially to the girl child. But at the moment, we are realizing that anybody can accomplish anything, anybody can achieve anything. So resources are being equally made accessible so that we are able to see emerging MSMEs despite their gender. Some of them are not as academic as anybody can be in an academic setup, but they are gifted in creativity, in farming, in innovation, which many a times does not necessarily require somebody to have a BSc degree and whatever, but it just requires to support them based on the brains that they have. As we speak Africa as a whole, has a lot to offer. Private sectors led by small-scale farmers, manufacturers, innovations, farmers in agri-businesses who are tapping into the entrepreneurial drive are a huge platform for Africa's readiness to collaborate and to do partnerships. Africa's key industries. Africa has key industries. I just highlighted the overview of some of them, not all of them. Africa remains one of the world's most richest continent as regards minerals, key industries, areas, and are yet to be tapped into and contribute to the growing of the economy and improving to the lives of their people. Excuse me. About a year ago, I've been talking to some experts in agriculture from India who have been training people in South Africa, people in Zambia, people in Namibia and Zimbabwe in terms of bamboo farming. I mean, it's something which has never been explored and emphasized in Africa. But when I heard of some of the products that come from the bamboo farming, because everybody has just not thought about in Africa, what comes out of bamboo farming. And everybody got excited to access the training. You look at these key industries in terms of farming, agriculture are put here, banking. Agriculture is probably one of the fastest growing key industry in Africa. You find people who have agriculture, even those who have done finance, even those who have done other, but they've accessed the land, they've realized there's a whole lot of wealth in the land, and many of them are tapping into it. Banking industry. I think the banking industry in Africa has been one of the huge and fast growing. I'll just run through and go through some of them. There's infrastructure and partnerships, there's mining, I think I repeated writing, typing there, banking, telecommunications, clothing, manufacturing, oil and gas, health sector, education, energy, and developmental aspects. I'll start with the agriculture in terms of what Africa has to do, offer based on agriculture. Africa's agro-ecological potential is massively larger than its current output. That's quite an important statement there. Its current output is not as impacting or being felt in the world as it should be. You look at Latin America, you look at Brazilian countries who are also involved in huge agriculture. They seem to have done or to be doing exceptionally well, but they also have enough land, rich land, just like we have in Africa. But because of this aspect of no support given to MSMEs in Africa in terms of agricultural input and output, Africa has more than 1/4 of the world's arable land. That makes it extremely viable. I mean, for any investor, for any donor partnering, for any collaboration, it's actually a very good fertile ground for anybody to come and do. Number 3, Africa generates only 10% of global agricultural output. It has land and resources to do better than this. 10% of global agricultural output. If Africa is functional fully around the agricultural aspect, it could be contributing to huge, if not more, than what I've just said in terms of 10%. That's why when I look at this day, MSME Day, it's a huge, important day that we believe as an organization, GCPIT, can actually have a huge impact in the world and an extremely huge impact in Africa, such that a whole lot of countries in the world can be sustained by the produces of Africa's agricultural output. Another fast-growing industry, which is a key industry in Africa, is the bank. I think sub-Saharan Africa has grown incredibly. Now I'm talking of banking in South Africa, banking in Botswana, banking in Namibia, in Zambia. Why is banking growing at such an incredible rate in Africa? It is because we are also having SMEs which are growing. Most of them, they're actually seeing the importance of having their monies saved in the banks, but also banks are beginning to realize that there's a whole lot of activity around MSMEs. So they are literally tapping into the resources. Banks do not grow. Banks do not emerge when there's no financial movement or where there's no production or where there's no innovation or agriculture. So banks are also realizing Africa is ripe for that, which means if we have international banks coming into Africa, the economic landscape is actually healthy for major bankers. I think I had a presentation last year with the India Chamber of Commerce, where banks are asking, they would like to come and partner with African farmers, like to come and partner with those involved in manufacturing. It is simply reflecting the state of Africa at the moment and where Africa stands in Africa and in the world, and contributing to economical boost and economical growth in the entire world. Africa's economic landscape is fully utilized and supported. If fully utilized and supported, can be a place of thriving. MSMEs and banking can tap into the enormous rich market that Africa is offering for the banks. Energy is one of the huge aspects in terms of a key industry. Kenya has tapped into the energy pretty good. It has become one of the countries in Africa that has become a torchbearer in terms of energy. But if you look at Africa, the entire continent, in terms of energy, currently, you look at countries like South Africa, you look at countries like Zimbabwe, you look at countries like Zambia, you look at countries like Namibia, they're actually struggling with power. Is it because there is no way that we can tap into something? And I spoke to experts from India who are promoting bamboo farming. They actually also went on to tell me bamboo farming can be plowed back into energy. But these things, they are available, and many a times they are not known to the political leaders or to the people who are decision makers, who are able to say, look, there's this way of bringing energy. At the moment, energy is big business in Africa because the industries are growing. The innovations are even more. The manufacturing is going on. So you find that energy, renewable energy in Africa is huge business. The most notable energy opportunities in Africa are in African countries, in Southern African countries, and are identified by Kenya and the AFOB are great fiscal and stability and job creation. Wherever there is these industries, a lot of this unemployment that our political leaders in Africa have failed to deal with, we will find there won't be an issue of unemployment because the MSMEs are growing and the MSMEs begin to be more employers than even the government. They should be employing a huge chunk of people than what the government would be employing. Sub-Saharan Africa has become a substantial player in energy markets, in the banking industry also, with lots of potential for Africa to expand and to grow. Africa has the potential of attracting billions of dollars through the energy sector. So it's an industry, a key industry that I believe is just ripe to be tapped into. In Africa, Kenya is a continental global leader in renewable energy and exploitation. And not only Kenya, other countries also have this platform, but they are not being fully utilized or attended to. The other aspect industry that I can look at the moment, which is very key in Africa, is healthcare in Africa. Healthcare, I'm talking of the pharmaceuticals, I'm talking of the medicinal. A whole lot of the pharmaceuticals are a result of products that are coming from herbs that are being farmed. And many a times you will find out and realize that these herbs are probably coming from Africa. And just because there is no knowledge or somebody to bring the understanding to say this and this and this, if processed, would actually bring this, maybe I can just say this Panado is a process of this, this medication is a process of this. But we have farmers who are doing these things in Africa who are not aware they're actually dealing with health issues. If you look at Cameroon, at the moment, Cameroon is one of the giants in terms of encouraging medicinal relationships, African medicinal relationships, and pharmaceuticals in terms of manufacturing and production. Africa is in need of healthcare because it's an emerging giant in economics, it's an emerging giant in innovations. You can't see the economy of a country grow and become sustainable when you neglect the health aspect. And Africa's health aspect has not been really given the attention that it deserves. Africa's health care system is one of the worst affected in the world, and healthcare sub-Saharan Africa and East Central Africa remains the worst in the world. You find you go to Tunisia, you go to Morocco, you go to Egypt, just to mention a few North African countries, there's challenges in terms of health personnel. There are challenges in terms of health equipment, technology. It's not as bad as these other countries, Western Africa, East and Central Africa, or Southern Africa, probably with the exception of South Africa. But South Africa itself, you find a whole lot of health personnel from South Africa are relocating to New Zealand, relocating to Australia, relocating to Canada, and mainly in recent years, a lot of them relocating to the United Kingdom. But at the same time, our leaders, our political leaders are not able to grow and sustain the equipment. That's why I'm saying if we could have MSMEs who are encouraged. We have pharmacists, we have those who have graduated from reputable universities all over the world who have come back to Africa to contribute to the developing of the African economy. And some of them are just passionate about the health aspect. There is a widespread poverty in Africa. And when there is poverty, health becomes a luxury for the ordinary citizens. So that's why I'm of the opinion as we celebrate this day, MSMEs, is that we need also to make sure the healthy aspect, the healthy care of these emerging entrepreneurs and small, medium farmers and whoever is involved in innovation is taken care of, because you can't build an economy and at the same time you neglect the health of the people who are part of the economy. And the shocking and astonishing 65% of the continent's health expenditure is financed by out-of-pocket payments from individuals who are part of the MSMEs. And it's said that is not coming from the 65% is not coming from government, it's coming from these self-employed, cooperatives, community projects that the government, of which many cannot afford even. Just a picture of some of the challenges in the health sector. During the COVID time, you would hear nurses in South Africa say, hey, they're not capacitated to work. South Africa is known as an economic powerhouse, not just in Southern Africa, but in Africa. But the government could not manage to supply all the required equipment during COVID. So when we speak of partnerships, when we speak of investors, when we speak of collaborators, I'm mentioning just a few of the key industries. Health is key. And at the moment, I think in the entire world, Africa offers more options in terms of partnerships and collaborations and investors and for MSMEs around the health aspect. Africa's health sector impacts negatively on economical growth and investment as long as it is not attended to or addressed. Africa's healthcare continued. It is estimated that in the next decade, Africa needs over, this is shocking, US 35 to $45 billion in new investment to meet Africa's care and service demand. That can never be emphasized. As we celebrate this day, SMEs globally, we're looking now at the impact of the health of these people. Do they have access to health care? Do they have access to treatment and medication, and are drugs readily available? I can give you a case scenario at the moment. You find people from Zimbabwe, from Mozambique, from Malawi going to Zambia to buy medicinals because I understand it's cheaper. Much of the medicine are coming, or the medication in Zambia at the moment is coming from India. That's how Africa requires this. It's affordable. People are affording it. And if you go to private hospitals, people are not able to access these things. But if Africa is to capacitate and support what us as GCPIT are trying to accomplish and envision to seeing that we can be self-sustainable. We can be self-sustainable in health. We can be self-sustainable in energy. We can be self-sustainable in agriculture, as long as we just don't speak it, but we put it into action and nurture and grow some of these around us. Impact of Africa's MSMEs in economic building. As leaders in the cooperative world and political world, I meant to say that I'm of the strong belief that by attentively listening to the economical structure and support and the operational needs of small-scale business owners and entrepreneurs is most critical and fundamental, of prime importance to designing innovative solutions that are supporting by far and large small business to become economic builders, hubs of employment, creating and greater engines of economical growth. Africa, majority of MSME owners do recognize that the financial and business acumen excuse me, plays a huge role in their growth and establishment. And they are very keen to access support, training, and investors. Over the past decade or more, women-owned or initiated MSMEs are on the rise in Africa, and some flourishing and spreading beyond the borders of their countries, signaling the rise and daring business steps by many marginalized women on the continent of Africa as the force to reckon with as successful MSMEs. There is a whole lot of successful stories. I can mention countries from Djibouti, from Somaliland, from Eritrea, from Burkina Faso, from Sierra Leone. It's a whole lot of successful women entrepreneurs. We are actually in the process of writing a documentary about successful women entrepreneurs in Africa. We're not talking about those who are doing tenders. We are literally zeroing in on those who have started their business from scratch, either innovation, either agriculture, either manufacturing. I know of a successful story of Mavis in Uganda who started from scratch and has built a huge cloth manufacturing, recently invited to the States to showcase. But Africa has all these, and the success of many of them is supposed to be complimented and acknowledged as GCPIT, partnering with government leaders in the world and bankers and investors and central banks, and saying, look, this is important to plow your resources, your efforts, your material development around MSMEs in the world. It will definitely grow many communities and improve many societies. Education is one of them that I didn't mention in the previous long presentation that I had made. Education is one key industry that Africa can be partnering, or that the investors in the world can come and be able to partner, to collaborate. You still find in Africa, there are villages that have not accessed it, just the standard education in terms of getting to be able to do A, B, C, D. Because of MSME Day, we need to be able to understand that we can never have successful MSMEs when there is no little training or little education. Education now begins to play a fundamental role. Thank you so very much. It's my privilege and honor to be with you, Ananya, to be able to speak on this important day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard. That was really helpful and very deep knowledge that you have shared with us. And thank you for giving your precious time to GCPIT. And once again, I would like to say thank you from the entire GCPIT team. Thank you so much.
Good, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you.